Alright, so we're going to do 3.4, which is solving two-step and multi-step inequalities. Now, all of your equation solving skills you learned in Chapter 2 with solving two-step and multi-step equations, will be used with inequalities. All the methodologies are the same. The only difference is we have to be careful whenever we multiply or divide by a negative number. So, we do have a review, but we're not going to do them. Okay, so remember, when we solve multi-step equations, okay, we may use more than one operation, or we use more than one operation. We use inverses. Sometimes we need to combine like terms, sometimes we need to use a distributive property, and sometimes we need to use reciprocals. All of these methods hold true for inequalities. But what do we need to be careful of? We need to be careful whenever we multiply or divide by a negative number because we have to flip our inequality. Okay, so here's our first example. So you can go ahead and just call this example 1. We're basically going to solve these. These are both two-step equations actually. So we have 1a and 1b. So let's start with the first one here. So the first step, we're going to move the 160. When I subtract, I get 340. So now I have 4f is less than or equal to 340. Divide by 4. Now, we're doing our division step. Since I'm dividing by a positive number, I do not have to flip my inequality. And 4 goes into 340. It looks like 85 times. So f is less than or equal to 85. Now, let's go ahead and do the graph real quick. We can do it on the bottom here. We have an 85 here, we have an 86 there, an 84 there. It's less than or equal to, so that means that is a closed circle to the left, just like that. Okay, now we're going to move on to the other one. So, example B, same thing. We're going to start by moving the constant, the 7, because it's on the same side as our variable. So minus 7, minus 7. 21 minus 7 is 14. Bring this down. Now be very careful. Very, very careful here. That is a negative 2t we're bringing down. Not just a 2t, a negative 2t. I saw that a lot with your warm-ups and some of the problems you guys were doing in class is you'd forget to bring that negative down. Negative 2t less than or equal to 14. We're going to divide by that negative 2 on both sides to isolate t. Now notice we're dividing by a negative number. See that right here? We are dividing by a negative number on both sides. So that means we must flip our inequality. So it now turns to greater than or equal to, and 14 divided by negative 2 is negative 7. I did not flip my inequality because I got a negative answer. I flipped my inequality because I divided by a negative number. Okay? Now we'll do our graph. And in this case, it's greater than or equal to, so it's closed circle on negative 7, and it goes to the right. Okay, so those are both two-step equations. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is instead of making this a practice, let's call this actually example 1c. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this on the other slide because there wasn't this type of problem in the other example. So let's go ahead and do that. So 1 minus 2n over 3 is greater than or equal to 7. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite it again. Now I'm going to make 7 a fraction because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply. Now be very careful here. When you cross multiply, if you cross multiply by a negative number with a negative number, you must flip the inequality. So we have to be very careful here. So we have positive 3 times positive 7, we get positive 21. Since I'm multiplying with the positive 3, I do not have to flip my inequality. Let's go the other way. This is positive 1 times the quantity of 1 minus 2n. Again, I'm using a positive to multiply, so I do not have to flip it. Now, 1 here is not going to actually change anything, so I'm just going to rewrite it as 1 minus 2n greater than or equal to 21. So now I'm going to do, this is now a two-step inequality. I'm going to minus 1, minus 1. So I'm actually going to rewrite this up here because I'm running out of space. Now if you notice, this is a negative 2n, okay? So you have to make sure you keep that negative there. So now we have negative 2n greater than or equal to 20. So now we're going to divide by negative 2 on both sides. Notice, what am I doing? Think about what I just said. I'm dividing by negative 2 on both sides because I just did a division problem with a negative number. My inequality is now going to change. I end up with negative 10. Just because my answer is negative, that's not why I flipped my inequality. I flipped my inequality because I divided by a negative number. And then of course we have our graph. So it's less than or equal to, so it's a closed circle on negative 10 and it goes to the left. Okay? Alright, so if you get something that looks like a fraction, just cross multiply to get rid of the fractions and solve. Alright, so let's move on to some more examples. We're going to do all three of these. Okay? So let's start with the first one. So this is, we'll call these example 2. So we have 2a, 2b, 2c. So, starting with 2a, we have negative 4 plus negative 8 less than negative 5c minus 2. Negative 5c minus 2. Okay. Alright, so remember what we talked about in the beginning. Sometimes you need to combine like terms and simplify before you can do anything. So in this case, where we can actually combine these. Negative 4 plus a negative 8 is a negative 12. So negative 12 less than negative 5c minus 2. So now we're going to, c's on this side, so we got to move this negative 2 away by adding. So I get negative 10. So I now have negative 10 less than negative 5c. So I'm going to divide by negative 5 on both sides. Notice what I just said. I just said I'm dividing by a negative number. So I'm going to flip my inequality. So this is going to turn to greater than. I end up with c on this side. And negative 10 divided by negative 5 is a positive 2. But remember, we want our variable first. So I need to switch these, and switching them flips my inequality again. So I end up back with my original inequality. And then of course we have our graph. And in this case it's less than, so it's a open circle to the left. Okay. Alrighty. The next one, here's the problem. So negative 3 times the quantity. Negative 3 times the quantity of 3 minus x is less than 4 squared. Okay, now when I look at this, I notice this 4 squared, and I'm going to go ahead and do 4 squared. Well, 4 squared is just 16. On this side, I'm going to distribute that negative 3. So negative 3 times 3, negative 9. Be very careful here. Negative 3 times a negative x is a positive 3x. Okay. Now I have my two-step equation. So my x is on the left, so I'm going to move my 9 to the right. I'm going to plus 9 here. Plus 9 here. 16 plus 9 is 25. So now bring down the 3x, so I have 3x less than 25. So now I'm going to divide by 3. divided by 3. Notice I am dividing by a positive number here. So I do not flip my inequality. So now I get x is less than, and now 3 can't go into 25, so we're just going to leave it as a fraction. Now you're probably wondering, well, Miss Stevenson, how are we going to do our number line? Well, watch what I do here. I'm going to put 25 thirds in the middle. So if I go up one more, I'm going to get 26 thirds. If I go to the left down one, I get 24 thirds. Okay? It's less than, so it's an open circle, and it goes to the left. All right, so far? Okay, we got one more. It's at the bottom. So we have 4/5 x plus 1/2. So 4/5 x plus 1/2 is greater than 3/5. All right, now remember what I told you to do with fractions? Get rid of the fractions. 4/5 x plus 1/2 greater than 3/5. So if I have, so big parentheses, so look at my denominators. Look at the denominators. We have a 5 and a 2, right? So the common denominator is 10. So we're going to multiply everything by 10 over 1. I'll go slow. Here we go. 10 times 4 is 40. 1 times 5 is 5. And then you have the x term. Here's the next one. Plus 10 times 1 is 10. 1 times 2 is 2. Bring down the equal sign. Now the last one. Or excuse me, not the equal sign, the greater than. Last one. 10 times 3 is 30. 1 times 5 is 5. Now we simplify. 40 divided by 5, 8. 10 divided by 2, 5. 30 divided by 5, 6. So now we have our two-step inequality. So now we can solve it. Minus 5, minus 5. We get 1. I'm losing space, so I'm going to bring it up here. So now I have 8x equals 1. So I would divide by 8. Notice, what am I dividing by? I'm dividing by a positive number. Okay, so I do not flip my inequality. Let me put my inequality back there. I put an equal sign accidentally. So x is greater than 1/8. Okay, so here we go. Fraction time on our graph. We have 1/8 here. If I go 1 up to the right, I would have 2/8. If I go down 1 to the left, I have 0/8, otherwise known as 0. So it's greater than, so open circle to the right. Okay, so notice what we're doing here is we're using all the same skills we did from chapter 2. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you have fractions, you can clear the fractions. It doesn't matter if you have a fraction in this sense, because you just cross multiply and then you do distribute. We didn't have to distribute here. Okay, in this example here, we did distributive property and we did a power, and then we did a two-step equation. And then in this example here, we just combine like terms first, and then we solve the two-step equation. So there's a lot of variations here. Okay, there's no like one way to do everything. So here's some review problems, some practice. I'm not going to go over these, but just know these are in your book if you want to try them. I hope you took really good notes. Actually, you know what? So here's some practice problems. So let's actually go ahead and try these. So put 3 minutes up and try to do 2 of them. So go ahead and pause the video. Alright, now that you've had a chance, let's actually do these. So first one, let's see, 5 squared is 25. So I'm going to have 2m plus 5 greater than 25. So I'm going to minus 5, that's 0, minus 5, that's 20. I get 2m greater than 20. I'm going to divide by a positive 2 so I don't flip it, so I get m greater than 10. So I'll put my graph up here, or I'll just put my graph off to the side here. It's greater than, so it's open circle to the right. Okay. All right. Second one. All right, so here what I would do is distribute this 2 here and there. So I get 3 plus 2x, that's 2 times x, and then 2 times 4, which is 8, is greater than 3. So here I can actually combine the positive 3 and the positive 8. Together they make 11. So I have 11 plus 2x is greater than 3. So now I have my two-step equation. So I would minus by 11. Minus 11. 3 minus 11 is negative 8. So now I have 2x greater than negative 11, or excuse me, negative 8. Divide by positive 2. Notice I'm dividing by a positive number, so I do not flip my inequality. I get x greater than negative 4. Just because I get a negative does not mean I flip my inequality. So now to do the graph, it's greater than, so it's open circle to the right. Okay. All right, last one. Fraction 1. Okay. So in this case, we would do our really big parentheses, and the common denominator is going to be 8. So we're going to multiply everything by 8 over 1. So I'm doing that because of space reasons here. Normally I'd rewrite it and such. So here we go. 8 times 5 is 40. 1 times 8 is 8. Less than 8 times 3 is 24. 1 times 8 is 8, and this is our x term. Minus 8 times 1 is 8. 1 times 4 is 4. Now we simplify. 40 divided by 8 is 5. 24 divided by 8 is 3. 8 divided by 4 is 2. X is on the right, so that means I'm going to move the 2. Plus 2 is 7. I'm going to do a rewrite up over here because I'm running out of space. I now have 7 is less than 3x. I'm going to divide by 3 now. So I get 7 thirds is less than x. Now remember, we want our variable has to come first. So we're going to flip these, which means we've changed our inequality. Notice I did not change my inequality because of division. I divided by a positive 3 here, so I did not change it. I only changed it, whoops, it's not equal to, I gotta delete that. I only changed it because I had my answer backwards. So now our graph, it's 7 thirds. Remember how I showed you to do the fraction. 7 thirds goes in the middle. Then one more to the right would be 8 thirds. One less to the left would be 6 thirds, also known as 2. It's greater than, so it's open circle to the right. Okay. So again, this is using all the skills from Chapter 2, but it's just using them with inequalities. Okay. And that is it. So there you have it. Go ahead and work on your practice, your homework for today.